we're going to look over the Essential Brush tool. You use it a lot in Photoshop for many different things, from erasing to editing masks. And it's a pretty straightforward tool, and it's also one that we can customize quite a bit and have a lot of fun with. So let's begin by creating a new file and setting it to Web, and then choose the 1600 by 1200 drop down, which will also have the resolution of 72 dpi, and color mode is RGB, and click OK. And then let's make a new layer so that we've got something to play on. The brush tool is in the toolbar about a third of the way down, and it looks like a brush. If you click on it, there's more tools docked there. The brush is the top one and can be gotten by hitting the letter B as in boy. If you hover over your screen, you should see a little circle or whatever your brush shape might be. But if you're seeing instead a little crosshairs, look down at your keyboard. Your caps lock is probably on. You are currently in precision mode. If you hit caps lock again, it will go off. So to begin painting, you usually need to pick a color. So I'm going to pick a color here from my color picker. And then for freehand drawing, you can just click and draw. I'm just clicking and holding down my mouse. To draw a straight line, if you click and then hold Shift, it will restrain it to either the horizontal or the vertical and make a straight line. If you hold Shift, and click again, you get this nifty little dot to dot feature. Which is great. So I'm going to clear off the layer I've got by selecting everything, Command A, and just hitting Delete to clear, and then Command D to deselect. Let's take a look at how we can change up the qualities of our brush. In the tool control bar, the very first thing is a place where we can create and save settings for brushes, but the next one is what we really want to look at. These are brush presets, meaning that it has a tip shape and there's been some settings created to make it either have a fuzzy, a straight edge, or if you have a touch sensitive tablet such as a Wacom, a thin to thick to thin quality of stroke. These top sliders are for the size. So right now if I hover over my canvas, I can see I have a pretty small brush, but if I click this and drag it to the right, it will increase the size of my brush. If I increase the hardness, I change the edge quality of the brush. So right now the edge is very soft. Put it up to 100 and you get a crisp edge. The other one on here won't be very visible, or you won't be able to tell what it's doing with a round brush, so we need to scroll down to where we find a brush that's not just round. If I click on this 60 pixel scrubby brush and then click once out on my canvas, and I'm going to zoom in here real quick so you can see a little bit closer. That's the pattern of the brush tip. And if I come in here and click and drag this little arrow, you'll notice the next time you click it's a different angle. So that little setting changes the angle of your brush. With brushes, if you change settings, for example, to grab one of these basic brushes, and I've increased the size, I've put the hardness to a very specific number. If I want to keep that brush so that I can come back and reuse it again and again, I have to save it, because right now if I click off of that brush, it will not remember any of the settings that I've changed on the second down brush when I go back. To save the settings that you've got as a brand new brush, you can click in the top little right corner where there's a little gear drop down and choose the very top option, New Brush Preset. It will pop up a window asking you to name it, and I'm going to say this is an example brush, and click OK. My brush preset preview here just dropped all the way to the bottom, which is where my new brush became logged. It's right here. There's another couple of features you should know about in this little drop down. You can change the way that your brush preset previews look by changing any of these options here. So we could actually say text only. So if you create brushes and have very specific uses for them, you can give them names by text and then find them easily there. The small thumbnail, I believe, might be what you automatically have, is the small thumbnail view. My favorite view is the stroke thumbnail. I feel like that gives you the most information in your little preview screen. Please note that you can increase the size of your brush window by clicking and dragging the bottom right hand corner. Pretty much any area that has these little, you might not even be able to see them on mine, but these little diagonal hash marks here, that indicates that you can grab that corner and move it. Alright, I'm going to clear off my canvas again by hitting Command A, clearing, and Command D to deselect. And I'm going to get a different color just for fun. Alright, so we have a brush picked. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to change the size and the edge quality of your brush. So aside from coming up here to this top control bar area, you can right click when you have your brush tool and that will pull up that exact same window. And remember, you can increase the size or decrease the size. The disadvantage of using this to change the size of your brush is you always have to come back out to your screen to see what it is. And with the hardness, it actually will extend beyond the brush edge. So if I click once, oh my bad, I meant the other way. If it's down to 0%. If I click once and leave my mouse there, you can see that fuzzy edge extends beyond that circle. So it didn't really show me a true live preview. The shortcut I would encourage you to learn is holding Control and Option together, and then you can click and drag to the left or right to change the size of your brush, or up or down to change the hardness of the edge. And this little window that pops up, or little information window, tells you exactly how big pixel wise or hardness, and it also says the opacity. My opacity is currently at 100%. Also, that is indicated by this bright red color. That indicates my opacity. Now, what is opacity? I'll show you. I'm going to create just a couple marks here that are 100% opaque and make a new layer. I have these controls up here in my control bar. One's for opacity. We'll start with that. If I lower the opacity of my brush, and I'm going to grab a different color just so this is really obvious, when I click and drag to paint above something that is already there, it will be semi-transparent and let that object that is below show through. And as long as I keep my mouse held down, I can scrub over this as many times as I want, and it's not going to get any darker. It's just uniformly filling this area at 53% opacity. And when I let go and click and drag again, it will add more color, and you can do that until it is completely filled in. So that is opacity. This button, as well as this button, are for those touch-sensitive tablets. So if you click on either one of these, it becomes touch-sensitive. Now, I do have a tablet plugged in, so I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I've got both of these turned on, which means that it should also be doing opacity and the size of my brush by how hard I click. So you can see that my brush is quite large, but it's only making a small area, and then if I push harder, it fills in more of my brush. So this is a very useful feature, and tablets are wonderful. I would highly recommend, if you can, finding one that you can play around with before you buy one. There are a couple of different options out there in the market. Let me just hop over to Google real quick and I can show you. The main producer of these tablets, and possibly the only maker of them to my knowledge, is Wacom, which is W-A-C-C-O-M. I'm at a hotel and apparently it's not letting me get on there. Let's see. Here we go. Let's try this again. WACCOM, and Google will bring up their web page. I'm going to type in tablet after that so I can get a couple of pictures to show you. The pad that I was just using is this one. This is their Wacom Intuos Pro. However, they have recently released a much lighter version that looks like this for significantly less. A medium-sized Pro is about $300, and a medium-sized Intuos pen is, I want to say about $100, so you'd have to look that up. The Pro is more sensitive and keeps up a little bit better, but this is a great introductory one to give a try if you're not wanting to spend a whole bunch of money. They're a lot of fun. If you're going to be painting very much, I recommend the purchase. They're totally worth it. I work with a medium size, which is my preferred, but you can also make just fine do with a smaller one. So back in Photoshop, we've covered what opacity is. So the next question is, well, what's flow? Because if I increase my opacity to 100% and then decrease my flow and click and drag, it looks pretty much like that last one that I just did. Flow, if you click and drag and don't let go, will build up to 100%. Whereas with the opacity down, we had to click multiple times. So flow imitates maybe a more real-life type of medium. There's another setting up here you should probably know about. It shows up best though if we're using one of these pre-made fuzzy brushes. So I'm just going to grab this top fuzzy brush and then turn my go away. There we go. And then turn my touch sensitive buttons off and click on this one that's next to flow, which is enable Airbrush Style build up. What that means, if you've got a fuzzy brush and you click once and just hold down, you can see how it keeps building up more and more paint. So it's as if you had either an airbrush or a spray paint can and were aiming it and just holding that nozzle down, and it would keep building up. So if I go really fast, it's lighter, especially if I lower the flow. And then the more I hold it down, the more it will build up. Alright, just a last couple of nifty little shortcuts for working with your brush tool. As I showed you before, if you hit caps lock, you become in precision mode, which will hide the edge of the brush. Turn caps lock off there. If you use the left and right bracket keys, it will increase and decrease the size of your brush. And I want to say, I used to remember the, I used to remember the shortcut for doing the fuzzy, but I used that click and drag one so much I don't anymore. Anyway, the period and comma or less than and greater than keys will actually switch you between brushes. So up here in my little preview, I can see those brushes changing as well as on my screen. So left and right bracket keys for size, left and right greater or less than for switching between brushes. Alright, in the next tutorial I'll go over how to customize existing brushes.